Hello, and welcome to the first video of Nobles Professionals. Now, what we have here is a beautiful, stunning Volvo 740 91. I'm just going to walk you through some basic tips, tricks, and tutorials on how to check things that may be wrong in your car. Preventive maintenance is a must. First thing we're going to talk about is belts. These are super duper important, obviously. You want your belt to be about this tight. Now, belt systems are run usually one of two different ways. With a bracket and tensioner system, like featured here, where my AC condenser has its own belt and pulley, own belt for the alternator, and its own belt. I might have just tripped over my jack. That's okay, because I'm a professional. I didn't fall, I only tripped. And the belt for my power steering, water pump, and clutch fan. Now, this is important because you don't want your belts getting too loose. It'll make them deteriorate faster, and then you have to change them more. To tighten these types of tensioner bracket pulley system bolts, there's usually a 10 millimeter bolt going through this kind of bracket, which pulls the alternator one way or the other, depending on which way it's facing. Now, I just tightened mine up because it was loose. Other belt systems will usually have an idler pulley. These are about $15 to $30 on most part stores and websites. So replacing them is very, very easy. It's just as easy as taking the belt off, taking the pulley off, and having a good time. Now then, let's go to something a little less known. This is your coolant reservoir or expansion tank. Now, note here, my radiator does not have a cap. This is a closed system, meaning the only way to access it is through my expansion tank. Now, this is pressurized. It'll tell you usually whether or not it's pressurized. 150 kPa. That's what that says, kPa. So, we're just going to go ahead and screw this off, which I'm only doing because I have not been running the vehicle. And as you can see, it's dry because this car doesn't need any coolant to run. I don't know where it goes, but it doesn't need it. This is the original radiator for this car, and it's got 271,000 miles on it. So I'm guessing that's probably why I'm leaking coolant. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Now, if you have some temperamental 2000 and something whatever, you probably need to have coolant in there. Those things overheat like that. Next, we're going to talk about oil leaks. These are usually what can make or break a car. Now, mine has a wobbly oil cap. I'm pretty sure you can hear it moving. It does not move. This valve cover is worn out and needs to be replaced. Unluckily for me, it's a 91, so finding one is going to be a little challenging. I've already replaced the oil cap, which has, as you can see, a rubber gasket inside it. So if you replace your oil cap and it's still leaking out of here, valve cover's worn out. That's just one of many different type of oil leaks that you could have. You could have your front main seal, which is behind your crankshaft pulley, or your rear crankshaft or your rear main seal, which is in between the transmission and the motor. I can't see it from up here, and I'm not getting under the car because, well, you're probably not going to be changing that if you don't know where your transmission is. Moving on. Intake manifold. These have gaskets in between here and here. These gaskets get worn out, of course, just like all metal. Usually these are metal gaskets, sometimes they can be rubber. I can tell right off the bat because there's some of it is exposed out of the sides. You can see it. It is a metal gasket. I think that these sometimes last longer, but they are more prone, I would imagine, to heat damage. You can take a little bit of brake cleaner while your motor is running and spray it in these areas here. And if it gets into the motor, it'll bog it down. That's all. It's not going to hurt nothing. Just bogs it down. And you'll know that you have a leak in your intake manifold. This is important because in order to do maximum vroom vrooms and skirt skirts, you need a fully performing intake gasket. Exhaust manifold gaskets are a little more forgiving if they go out. They'll just blow exhaust all over your motor and your motor bay and give you a bunch of dirty bad times and sound bad and maybe rattle a little bit. But that's okay because it doesn't inherently affect the performance of the motor. And while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about your coolant belts. I replaced this one already, which is why it looks like this ribbed snake. We're not gonna go there right now. So yeah, check your hoses for cracks, dings. Obviously, see here, this would be a very easy hose to replace, even if I was not a professional, which I am. Now you can sometimes squeeze these hoses, and you can hear stuff. I can hear the coolant moving, but you probably can't because you're on a phone. Moving on. This is going to be your air intake box. Now mine is connected to a type of PCV system that's underneath my intake manifold. That's actually what I'm getting ready to do today, is take that out and clean it because it's dirty, which is making a lot of oil backfire into my intake manifold around here and my throttle body. That's what this is. You push the gas pedal, it makes this do stuff, very good stuff. And this is where all your throttle happens, from your gas pedal. It does nothing more than pull this cable, unless you have an electronic throttle body, of which it will send a sensor to let the car know how hard you are pushing the gas pedal and how hard to either close or open. Closed, open. Throttle bodies are very simple, and they're usually very simple to take off and clean. They get dirty as well. It's all about cleaning and fine-tuning, checking your gaskets. Now see, this here is a problem I have, but since it's a 91, it doesn't actually matter. This is technically my mass airflow sensor, and it's supposed to go in here, but it's broken, so it doesn't stay in there, and it doesn't really matter, because a piece of it is still in there, which is sealing the vacuum, so it's not causing me any problems or letting any dirt get in there. And of course, you have here where your air filter resides. I just changed mine, and I'm pretty sure that you're able to without much hassle and fuss. You might even be able to con an AutoZone employee into doing it for you. Now, you might notice this wire here that I have ran. This is part of a much more complex job that I have made, which is tying a wire into the bright light wire, which is this one, and you have here, which would be your low beams. The black is your ground, about 8 times out of 10. And what this has done is this wire is ran all the way to my headlight switch, which only comes on with the ignition turned over. So all I have to do is turn my key and my headlights come on at full power, which is great because the actual headlight switch is blown, but it still has power running to it. So instead of doing that, I bypassed it. Yay, bypasses. All right. So next, we're going to be talking about jacking up your car. It's very easy to jack up your car and mess things up. But it's also very easy to not mess things up. Now, you can see here, we have my sway bar. That's what this is, your sway bar. It's right in there in the middle, which comes down to where ball joint and some other stuff are. This is a very good jacking point as long as your bushings are well and fine. Mine are 91, so that makes them 5 years older than me, so 29 years old. And yeah, so at 29 years old, these bushings are still good enough for me to be able to jack them up. As you can see here, how I have it jacked up right on that little bar. And really, it's only touching it, but that's okay because all I'm doing is an oil change and the tire's not even actually off the ground. So, if it does fall, worst case scenario, it just goes a little lower. Now here's a tip. When you are doing your oil change, you can take off your oil cap, and that will allow oil to flow a lot faster down through while it has airflow. Also do this while your motor is cold and has not been driven for at least an hour to ensure that all the oil has seeped down into the oil pan for you to be able to change it all. Thank you. This has been a Nobles Professionals tips, tricks, and tutorials. Please let me know if you would like to see anything done